Anyway, so welcome everyone. We were just chatting before we jumped on here, and I was giving Jade a quick update. Hello, Jade. You're in a different office today. You're looking all professional. I wonder whose office you're in.
My fiance has an insurance and financial and tax business, so I stole an office.
Nice, nice,
hmm
looking all formal, and I'm less
hmm
formal. So as you can see, I'm a bald man, and we're coming into the sun season. And I'm not a
Yeah.
big fan of trucker hats, never have been, because they've kind of got this really high thing and never fit well. And as no protection up here, the back of these hats always like cut my head, right?
hmm
So I was at a trade show on Tuesday, and I know this is totally off topic community. However, it's about understanding your audience. And the guy, because I'm a dad hat guy, and the guy's like, "Hold on, let me pull something out for you."
What does it
Like look
say?
at this. This is this like if you could feel this, this is buttery soft,
Oh,
right?
what
And
does it say? It's
well, I
killing me.
don't even know. It's Oregon State Beavers. They were just samples. He gave it away, but look, it fits like a dad hat. Like it's freaking awesome. Anyway,
That's
I
amazing. I
I
love that for
shared.
you.
I know. I'm so happy. It's going to give me like the wildest tan this summer.
Oh,
So
uh,
I'm looking forward to
everybody,
that
if
weird
you
tan.
have no other reason to follow TTC Wine Marketing Heroes, let's check in at the end of the summer on what the top of Mark's head looks like.
Well, Katie said to me, she says it might be a bullseye for birds. So, just look at that, right? It could be a bullseye. There's the arrow, and there's the
Yeah, it's almost like basketball shaped.
right. Yeah, yeah, totally. Anyway, the point of that is, and the reason why I'm wearing the hat and bringing it up today is, it really is about knowing your audience and understanding what their specific unique needs are. And I mean, it's funny. It's a hat. It's merch. It's a merch vendor at a winery trade show.
But look how
And-
happy you are.
right? Right? Like nobody understands the plight of the bald man. You all make fun of us. Anyway. So how are you,
You're like
Jade?
a doppelganger with my fiance, by the way. So
I know, it's great. Great. And we both have beautiful fiancés, so that's all I have to say.
deal.
Um, uh, so, so how have you been?
Guys, best day ever.
Oh yeah,
I just got back from getting tamales for lunch,
tamales is good.
and I'm in Georgia today. So it's beautiful and sunny, and I like laid on the front porch of the office. There's no meetings today, so I was like, I'm gonna lay out. I like laid in the sun and got vitamin D for the first time in forever. And then
That's
I came inside, I peeled myself up just to hang out with all of you guys, and I'm very excited about it.
nice. Well, we're really excited that you're here.
Yeah,
So,
it's gonna be good.
and some of you who have only seen some more of the technical side of things, you're wondering, this is a little different vibe, a different feel. Of course it is, because we're talking about communities and building relationships and not talking tech. So
Yeah.
in the preview, we talked. It was a term I'd never heard before. Even what did you call it? You called it.
This is a proprietary term. I like to refer to the way you view data
Yeah,
for community and relationship building purposes as a grid. So I call it a data grid.
fantastic. So we're going to dive into that.
Mm.
I have been sharing, and I hope you are too, the idea and the notion of seen, heard, loved. Right. And so at the trade show, I was talking about things. They're a marketer, and I'm like, oh, you're on the marketing team. Perfect. You've heard about know, like, and trust. And they're like, yeah. And I said, I want you to
hmm
go away from this interaction, and I want you to bring to your team the notion of seen, heard, and loved. And I explain it to them, and I tell you, people are just like, I'm blown away. Like,
I know
so
it's a mic drop for
it, it
sure.
it really is. I wish I had the mic. But speaking of the mic, this
hmm
is fun today. I love.
Yeah,
This is fun.
it's so good.
Speaking of the mic, and I got my mic here.
hmm
At this event, the organizers, it was for the Ontario Craft Wineries Association, and they brought in as the keynote opening speaker a fifth generation Italian winemaker. And Gaja is the brand. And it was really talking about transforming and the whole thing. And if you ever have a chance to see her speak, she's amazing. I don't know if they're going to release that for public consumption, but if they are, I'm going to share it with everybody, because there were 5 key points in the conversation. But what I love the most, and this is why I'm bringing this conversation up in community, is they represent an area in northern Italy that has like at the beginning of the century, not this one, but the last one, was known for very low quality wine. There were farmers, there wasn't any winemakers, and so on. And so her great grandfather decided one day that I'm going to make my own wine. And he only made premium wines. And he and 2 or 3 other people over the course of the next 50 years transformed the region. And it was because they collectively worked together. It was because they collectively saw that the community of the farmers, of the workers, of the people, of all of the merchants in the area could work together and collaborate together to create an experience for visitors and for other people. And now, I mean, their wine is world famous. And I sampled some, and it was amazing. I'm not a wine connoisseur, but damn, that was good. But here's what I wanted to share with you, Jade.
I'm excited.
She was talking about her wine, and I have a glass that they handed out. And so she picked up the glass and she says, when people come to our winery, we don't talk about the wine that's inside. We talk about everything that's outside and around the glass as our community. And depending on who we're talking to, we share the different portions of what they're interested in, because the wine's the wine. It's great. But it's everything else about it. And it's the experience that they have when they leave us and they leave our region, that they go forth and bring other people back. And it's the shared experiences that keep people coming back and wanting to go and seek out our wines wherever they are in the world. And I was just like, oh my God, Jade should be here, because they're intentionally creating community, right? Through the storytelling, through understanding where people are in their journey, where they come from, all of that kind of stuff. And they're making these communities intentionally, not around the wine that's inside, but what's happening outside of the glass, in the building and around the community. And Jade, this is kind of where I wanted to kind of bring it back to our conversation, is how could we leverage partnerships? And this is totally, I've had this scripted since I think 11 o'clock Tuesday morning, and we're Friday now. So I knew I was coming at you with this. So okay. Totally hot seat on you, but I know you're good. You can handle it. How do we build community and extend partnerships so that we can leverage a restaurant, an event, something outside of our building, and we can create a shared experience and a shared community, not only within the walls of our building or within the grounds of our winery, but within the community at large. And we can extend that and leverage partnerships to help create community around what we collectively do. That's my question for you.
Oh, I'm locked and loaded for this. I love this question. I feel like a lot of the marketing world, and if you're a small business owner, you're in marketing whether you like it or not. You might notice that a lot of times it feels like marketers and gurus or small businesses, it feels very much in silos. You have the guy that you go to for your POS, and you're like, this is who I am, and this I know everything, and I'm going to talk, and it's very single mindedness. Right. And I think while that maybe somebody's approach, the gurus or the celebrities or the smartest people that I admire the most in any industry are the ones that the term that I like to say is community over competition. For sure. And so Mark and I are in a couple shared communities. One of them is the Keep Certified Partner community. We're all small business owners. Yeah, we all, in theory, sell and use a singular product. So you would think that, if I get more clients, they get less clients. But in reality, there are more small businesses that need us than ever before. There is not a lack of people that need us. And the more we support each other and lift each other up, the better. And furthermore, because you specifically asked in a community sense. So let's say I go to the Mark Garrett conference because Mark's the guru and I want to learn from Mark. So I'm going to go. Isn't it better if I go to the Mark Garrett conference and I also get to learn from Stu McLaren or Amy Porterfield or Greg Jenkins or Clayton Mask or other amazing people that he has in his orbit?
Yep.
I'm better for it. He's better for it. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to leave Mark to go do business with someone else. I'm going to admire Mark because my relationship with Mark means I also have a relationship with the other people.
Right.
So it's quite literally win, win, win. Win for me as the attendee, win for Mark because he's building bigger networks and more people that respect him, and win for this person because it's more than likely that that's not a direct competitor. It's like a peanut butter and jelly type thing. So I might go to Mark for this. Yeah, I go to Mark for this thing. And Mark can't do everything for everybody.
Right.
So like Mark and I have a shared friend, Greg Jenkins, and Greg is an educator. He only teaches and hosts community. He does not do direct consulting.
Right.
I do direct consulting. So guess who Greg recommends when someone says, Greg, I really need help building this campaign. He goes, I don't do that, but I know someone who can. Right. So, and in return, I send him a lot of business. So it's financially beneficial on top of the even more important, impactful part of the emotional beneficial.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting. I love that analogy that, you are the consumer, and this is, obviously it's a win-win for everybody. But if I put just the consumer, the customer, the client, the partner, the member first, and I look at them, if we collectively come together to be of service to them, so that's where the client wins. So here's a novel concept that I know a lot of people are going to look at and go, that'll never happen. But I say try it. Is you guys
we'll see about that, Mark.
What's that?
I said we'll see about that.
Yeah. So you guys are engaged. We're engaged. Not you and I, but Katie and I are engaged. So we're in wedding planning mode, right? And so we're planning on next year. I don't know when you guys are planning. When are you planning?
We've only decided that we're getting married in Georgia. That's all we know.
Okay, perfect. Well, there you go. You got a location. So will you be serving sweet tea? I don't know. That's a Georgia thing, right?
I won't be drinking it, but probably.
Yeah. Okay. And so the idea is, what if you got, as the venue, as the winery, what if you got together 3 or 4 wedding planners, 3 or 4 photographers, 3 or 4 DJs, 3 or 4 caterers, and you hosted your own thing there to help the community of fiancés and people looking for wedding venues, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of them having to go and search and talk to each other. Now, there will be wedding planners that will hate that idea because there's like, no, I'm not competing. And what if the wedding planners and the DJs and all brought their guests and their potential prospects to this community, to this event? I'm
actually, I'm going to interrupt you because I have a real life example of this that happened last week. So I was at a Keep Academy event. Greg and I were teaching people how to build automation. And one of the attendees has a small business where he DJs weddings. And we were chit-chatting because, we were, I'm engaged, tell me blah, blah, blah. So we were talking about that. And he doesn't live anywhere near me.
Right.
But it made my life easier. He's like, if you're considering DJ, don't hire anyone but these 3 people.
Right.
So I got amazing recommendations for people in Georgia, even though this guy, and I would never, ever use him as a service, but he will probably make money off of the referral because I will make sure to mention to whomever we hire, like, hey, I heard from you. And then I'm sure that person reciprocates the referral relationship.
somehow, some way, or there's
Yeah.
just good karma and good juju in the world,
Yeah.
right?
The more you give, the more you get, I promise.
Absolutely. So I mean, so that's now this concept of here you are, you're watching the two of us. We are four people with our partners, and we have other friends and other networks of people that are looking at getting engaged or sorry, getting married. And so, isn't that interesting that switching that conversation, looking at that now? Here's a different idea. I want to talk about the power of consistency in building a community around people you don't know. So the winery that I work at, John, who you met at one of the early roundtables, we started a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, once COVID opened up, hosting Jazz Fest again. We were recognized at this event 2 days ago. John's Winery was recognized 2 weeks ago as being the key source of live jazz and live music in the entire region. And what's happening is wineries are sending their clients to us because they know it's a great experience. Right. So we were talking just before we came on this idea of a miracle on 34th Street, right? Where, Santa Claus is sitting there and he's like, oh, we don't have it. But if you go to Gimbel's or you go to Macy's, or you go to so-and-so, they'll have it. We don't have live music events at our place of the caliber. And if you're into jazz, and you've heard of a Canadian artist called Diana Krall, she is like one of the best jazz singers right next to Michael Bublé. Right. Ironically enough, they came from the same area. Maybe it's in the water, but there's a woman coming on the 30th of April that is the next up and coming. That's the quality of people that we have, multiple Juno Grammy nominated, Juno Award winner, all that kind of stuff. And so people they don't have the facilities. They can't bring these artists in. And so we started hearing this and we're like, well, heck, let's partner up with them. Let's create a larger community outside of our sphere of influence, outside of who we are. Let's go bigger and let's go and reach out and see restaurants, DJs, weddings. Who do you know that loves live music? And so it takes that to a whole new level, and we had never intended on it. So, Jade, have you ever heard of a program called Strategic Coach? So, big fan of Strategic Coach. Went through a bunch of their stuff, and ironically enough, Canadian company. And so they used to have, I don't know if they still offer it right now, but they had like this goal setting 2-year mentorship program. And one of the modules, which has stuck with me for better part of 20 years, is this concept of strategic byproduct goals, right? And so you set a goal and you create these additional strategic byproducts. And if you think about the primary goal being a tree, right? And it grows and then it sends off these seeds. And many times these unintentional or quasi-intentional seeds grow bigger than the original tree. And so when we look at community, the question I have back to you, Jade, is when you're intentionally building community, let's say for Greg Jenkins' program, and you're working on that, what has come from that you never even intended to come and develop and get created as a result of creating that community, or plus this or one of the other ones? What's happened there? You're smiling because I think some things have happened, right? So what's an example of that?
Yeah, I'm laughing because I got involved in entrepreneurship and marketing in general, only because I knew how to use Keep. It's a CRM automation tool for small businesses, and it was a tool I used at my crappy low pay office job a handful of years ago. And when I quit, I was like, I have a skill. I know that people need this. So I got certified, and that's how I met all of these wonderful heroes. literally.
Yeah, literally.
um, so I started community managing because I enjoy talking, and I'm an incredibly social being, but it's never something I gave myself a lot of credit for. I very much like poo-pooed it. I was like, I don't know, it's my personality, like whatever. It's not hard for me. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. But then more and more people started asking me to professionally manage their communities. Plus this, for example, I had a proposal in with Keep themselves. Like it's $100 million company that wants my help, not managing, but strategically designing a community. And what helped me, and I might have told you the story, what helped me get over my own imposter syndrome and own a skill that I can now say out loud, this is a skill and I'm good at it strategically, because I had the experience of getting genius mapped,
Yeah.
which is where it's like an NLP thing where someone interviews you for a very, very long time and they extract what you're intuitively good at and can't really explain, and you don't really know why or how you make the decisions you do, you just do. And they return it back to you in like logic statements, ones and zeros. This is how you do what you do. And it's commonly turned into instructional design, like for online courses. And that was the genesis of me stepping up to the plate and being like, I want to teach the world about how to be strategic about their communities. So it's funny that you asked, you were like, what came of you being a part of communities is owning the fact that there is strategy. And as it is with any industry, I think the more you see, and then the more you kind of network and grow, the more you see the bad out there too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when done well, communities can change lives. They can also be an unattractive part of your business. It can be an open source of bad PR and complaints if you don't focus the narrative and connect people intentionally. So that's literally why I'm here. And I'm really excited to help teach people on how to do it well, because I think everyone knows the community has become more and more popular since COVID, right? Like
Right.
they know that we need this. They know that we need each other. So they often will slap community on as kind of like, oh, buy my course and there's a community. It's kind of like an
Join our
afterthought.
club. Join our club. You're the
Right.
community, right? Yeah,
Or they'll
exactly.
have like a Facebook group and they just dump people in it, and then it's quiet or it's awkward or it's complainy, or we've all been in bad communities where it's like all the guru or influencer does is post weird questions every day, like what color describes you best, and you're like, why am I here?
That's awesome. Okay, well let me ask you a spin-off from there then is so let's say because we started with Greg's program. So
Mhm,
what has come out of actually no, let's go look at Plus This because that's another community that you managed.
mhm,
And that was a long-standing community before you got there.
mhm,
And it was a bit of a bitch session, quite frankly, for a while. And it was a
mhm,
negative, and it wasn't providing a lot of value because I was a member of that too for quite some
mhm.
time. And I just kind of gave up on it because it's like, whatever. Now it's like, it's kind of part of my weekly go through and scan, if not every other day, scan what's going on. Right.
I
And,
love
and I
it.
know I attribute a lot of that to you, but has there been things that that you never saw that was going to come of the community at large, that it was a what I call the strategic byproduct. Well, I don't call it. I borrowed it from Dan
Mhm,
Kennedy and those guys, but um,
mhm.
Dan Kennedy, no, strategic part.
Sullivan.
Yeah, and so those ideas, have they come up and that you've gone, oh wow, I never saw that was going to happen,
Mhm,
specifically with the Plus This community.
mhm. You know, Unfortunately, I hope this isn't like a big shock to you. The answer is actually the opposite.
Hmm.
I I'm constantly surprised what they have in common,
What do you mean?
because there are so many different kinds of communities, right? Like Keep or Plus This, for example, they're tools. It's a
Yeah,
SaaS,
yeah,
and there's like a Plus This users group where people who have that tool can come and ask questions. Same thing with Keep. They have an open user group with almost 10,000 people don't who think it's for customer service because they're not told otherwise.
right.
Um, but then like Greg's is like a camaraderie and questions for strategy and tool use. And then there's memberships for, I'm taking this course, and there's hobby groups. I'm in a group called Moms of Multiples in Washington County because I have twins, and you kind of need each other because we're in really weird, different situations. There's so many different kinds of communities. And even though the objectives and the formats range wildly, I'm constantly surprised what they have in common and how what makes them unique isn't really like byproducts per se that you're describing. What makes them unique is really just what makes that business and their value proposition unique. But the things that make the community powerful are often, I'm always surprised how much they have in common.
Wow, I didn't see that coming. That's I want to dive into that a lot more, but I'm just aware of the public time of things. So let's that was fun. I want to go on and on and on about this because there's so much there, but we need
Isn't
to
that
move
like
on
every
forward.
conversation we have? I love it.
I know. It's so funny. I look forward to everyone's conversation. It's just awesome. I love this. So what was I going to say now? Oh yeah. Okay. So let's flip over to data grids. Let's spend about 5 minutes on data grids, and then we'll cut off on the public side. We'll move into the member side, and we'll get like kind of nerd out on that for a bit. So can you introduce, when you say data grids, what do you mean by that? Excuse me. What do you mean by that? And how can we look at that to begin to understand our the potential communities that we can go and create and so on?
Yeah, I would say that taking away like the term data grid for a second, it's really just a way to describe how you pinpoint and categorize your people, because the only way you can have a community is if you know things about people.
Yes.
And that's why some of these groups I described are relatively poor, because it's just one person talking. And there isn't really an attempt to get to know you besides kind of silly engagement style questions. But even if they like hit really well one day and everyone answers a question, because people like talking about themselves. So let's say I was like, orange describes me because blah, blah, blah. Unless you store that, you're not going to have that as ammo later. So that, like, let's say a year later, someone's like, I kind of feel orange today. Da, 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 da. Like, if you have that data and you know that I'm an orange person and this person is struggling with being orange, you can connect these people. And that's where the magic really happens. It's not about you at all. And Mark knows I say this all the time. Community is not an objective, it's a format.
Right.
But more than that, it's a format where you are not on the stage. Oftentimes, if you're the business owner or the brand or an influencer, it's your thought leadership that has brought people together, or your value proposition has brought people together. But the value that you bring, community is not the place for you to display that. Maybe it's in your content, maybe it's in your product, maybe it's in your coaching or your teaching or your other avenues where you share your expertise or products or services. Community is a place for them to shine. Yeah. But the difference between the good community, because actually, let me back up before I make this point. The best communities that I'm in, the absolute best, the influencer or the leaders don't talk very much. However, and this is the point I was about to make, there's two types of community-led engagement. There's the bad kind and the good kind. The bad kind being, I kind of described, like there's oftentimes like SaaSes or, like Keep or tools where they have a user group where people think it's customer service. So it's kind of like an open complaining forum. That's not great community-led engagement. The way you can drive proper community-led engagement, the good kind, is when you're there, but you're holding space for other people. And because you're the leader, you know things about them. And because you know things about them, you can facilitate the connections. And you're just there. You're just there to be the house. It's like a party. The party's at my house. I'm hosting, but it's not a party if I just stand on a table and go, look at me, thanks for coming.
It would be a party.
To my house. That's not a party. A party is when you come to my house and I'm like, Mark, you're bald. So is Brian. Go and talk about your hats.
Right. I like what you did there. You pulled that all back around. I got that. So what I heard there is really, bringing that back to a winery, possibly a club membership and things like that. It's
Mhm.
it's about, sure, we're drawing in some engagement and we're doing things to elicit engagement, but then
Mhm.
we're not there to then answer all of the questions. We're there to help facilitate and engage other people. So as an example, I what's coming up, Mother's Day is coming up. So perfect. Hey, I'm looking for a venue to have a Mother's Day thing. Instead of me asking, um, instead of me asking this, then I can maybe go and introduce them to potentially to restaurants that are in the community, or an event planner or something like that, and let them talk amongst themselves, and then
Mhm.
hopefully spur more conversation. I think that's kind of what I took away from that.
Yeah, I love your Mother's Day example. So instead of a brand being like, "Mother's Day, come and find out how we're perfect for Mother's Day. We have Mother's Day gifts. Me."
Right, right, right.
If you had like an event, you could start to pull people like what kind of wine does your mother like? What kind of experiences do you like as a parent? How does wine help you? And then when people start to answer, you can nudge them
Mhm.
together.
That's awesome. Okay, well, let's take a pause here. We'll turn off the public chat. So for those of you who are here, thank you so much. I'm really grateful that you're part of this. And for everything else, we're going to dive in and get real nerdy and really talk about some data grid stuff. So here we go.